We are those guys. You see these guys all the way over there? Well, don't forget about those guys. I know it has been a minute. I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson. And it is time for the NFL draft. Took a couple of weeks for self-care, some R&R. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the quietest time in the NFL period, but there's no better time for many NFL fans than the NFL draft because everyone is undefeated, 0-0 record, and there's just hope. Every single draft pick out there is going to be a hit, is going to be a success, is going to be a franchise player for your team, and that's why we got to get to you right now. What's going on, Nick Ferguson?
What's going on, Alex Hardy? It is finally here, or not technically here, but hell, it's close enough.
We
It's
are
the NFL draft. Yes.
It's the draft season. Tuesday night, we're recording this just to make sure we get out ahead and any hot takes that we have before Thursday's first round, day 2 and 3 Friday, and rounds 4 through 7 the rest of the way. It'll be an uneventful weekend for your Denver Broncos with very limited draft capital, but they still do have that. That they still do have the. Oh no, that's right. They have Jalen Waddle instead of yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Because I forgot about the Jalen Waddle deal. Because that was probably one of the last things we talked about, here right on this podcast. So I'm encouraged by a number of things. And look, even before we get to the picks themselves, we have a lot of excitement, a lot of moves. I'd say like more than usual. There's more picks being swapped amongst teams. And the most recent one, the Cincinnati Bengals get themselves out of the first round. They trade the number 10 selection to the New York Giants for Dexter Lawrence, the disrupting nose tackle that just has these elite pass rushing metrics and has become a complete disruption kind of guy, but had some injuries this past season. The Giants defense, of course, maybe one of the bright spots in a team that was rebuilding with a rookie Jackson Dart. So this is a rare situation where it's been since 1989 where the Bengals traded their first round pick. And I personally think they're a little late to the party, but thank goodness they finally realized this is the time to contend with Joe Burrow, with that offense. Let's get an impact player in Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, man, this goes back to Joe Burrow making somewhat of a modest stink about where he feels he's at as a player. And rightfully so, he's one hell of a quarterback. And to be with the Cincinnati Bengals, usually we've seen players' careers go to Cincinnati and Detroit to die. But Joe Burrow said, I'm not dying on this damn hill. And he changed course of the organization and forced them into a course correction. Because anyone who's familiar with anything that's happened with the Cincinnati Bengals, we know that they are cheap. Another word that you can use is cost effective. Whatever adjectives that you want to, frugal, whatever. This is the Cincinnati Bengals, but Joe Burrow was just like, listen, I want to win, right? I want to win, and if you're committed to winning, there's some things that you have to do. Now, we know with the Cincinnati Bengals how much money they have on the offensive side of the ball, but we also know the issues they had defensively. I mean, I watched them play against the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football, and let me tell you, man, when I said it was bad, and it wasn't not bad being good. No, that it was awful. So it was so bad that Trey Hendrickson said, you know what? I'm going to sign a 1-year deal, and I'm going to get the hell out of here. And I'm going to go up the street to Baltimore. But the Dexter Lawrence deal, it says a lot about the impact that, for me, certain quarterbacks have in an organization where they can, voice things or kind of put them in the ether in the organization, say, maybe we need to change what we've been doing for the last 20 years. And I know some people are saying, well, the Cincinnati Bengals are crazy giving up a pick like that for Dexter Lawrence. Here's why I don't think it's crazy. Because you get a proven veteran guy that can come in, plug and play right now. And looking at the window that Joe Burrow is in right now, you don't have time to wait and develop on a defensive lineman. And who's to say that you would have been able to drive a guy at that position, that pick that you gave up, that would give you the level of play. And I'll add this, Alex. When you think about where the Cincinnati Bengals were last year, as far as average yards they gave up per game on the ground, 147 yards
Get
on the
out.
ground.
Okay.
147. So that tells you you have a run stopper, a glass eater, a guy who can plug the gaps and give the ball back to Joe Burrow And that's not saying that they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but the defense is a whole lot better now than it was last year.
Right. This team went to the Super Bowl, and I'll touch on the time that they went toe to toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was built on Lou Anarumo's defense being able to get Joe Burrow and that offense back on the field. It was a veteran led defense. Lou Anarumo's defenses do require a lot of strong safety play and intelligence in those positions and guys that are able to play multiple areas. They end up, losing a lot of those guys in free agency, as tends to happen for teams that go to the Super Bowl. And listen, they were never able to recover with the draft selections that they made. First round pick on Lewis Sign in the secondary. Some free agent moves that didn't necessarily pan out. And who's to say that I look at Shamar Stewart's draft selection last year, sort of a project pass rusher who didn't have a lot of success at Texas A&M, and who's to say that they could hit on the 10th overall pick? Now, I do wonder if they actually paid Trey Hendrickson, would Trey Hendrickson and whoever they take at the 10th overall pick be more impactful than Dexter Lawrence by himself? That's a possibility. You do want to have key players on rookie-controlled contracts when you're dealing with Joe Burrow's contract, Jamar Chase's contract, T. Higgins' contract. There's no history of a team that allocates so much of their salary cap to a quarterback and two receivers that can win a Super Bowl. They could be the first to do it, but history says otherwise. So I appreciate that they're taking the big swing. We can get into the New York Giants aspect of it. It's pretty boring. They're still multiple years away, and I'm not convinced that Jackson Dart is the future quarterback anyway. But from Cincinnati's perspective, it at least signals to their quarterback, we actually give a bleep about what we're doing. Like, we're going to make an effort and show you that these are the kind of moves that you believe in to get us over the hump. And that's the most important thing, is having Joe Burrow's assurance.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, you would rather have his assurance, or you had his assurance that he wants to get the hell out of Cincinnati. You don't want that, because, I mean, they've been in quarterback purgatory for years. Now, once again, this whole move with Dexter Lawrence, it may not kind of catapult them into being considered a front runner as far as the AFC is concerned, as far as going to the Super Bowl, but it puts them in the conversation. And that's all you want to do. Now, you brought up Trey Hendrickson. Now, Trey Hendrickson was basically placed on the outside, right? He's one hell of an outside pass rusher. But we're talking about someone inside. If you have a guy inside that can command a double team and who can press and disrupt run game and the passing game, basically what you're doing, you're forcing everything else out to the outside. And that means is that you can have average to mediocre guys on the perimeter edges, but you know what? They're going to get sacks. They're going to eat. You know why? Because the team has to account for Dexter Lawrence. And we know what Dexter Lawrence has done with the New York Giants. That's why some of the Giants fans were not happy about it. But I like this move for Dexter Lawrence and the Cincinnati Bengals. But it also says this, the GM for the Rams, Les Snead, is famous for saying, F them picks.
F them picks.
Right? And this is one of those reasons, because you don't know what that first round pick is going to kind of turn into. You are projecting, you are evaluating, and you are crossing your fingers and hoping like hell that it's not going to be like a J.J. McCarthy or Jake Locker situation or Paxton Lynch situation. So to remove yourself from that ideology, go take a proven veteran, right? Someone that you know what they can actually do. And here's the most important part. See, it usually takes a rookie 3 years before we know exactly what he is.
Right.
You already know already.
And the timeline, too, for an organization to pick up the fifth-year option if it's a first-round pick.
Exactly. Now you've avoided all of that. Now you're competitive, and you hit the nail on the head. Joe Burrow is a little happy, right, or happier. So if the Bengals came to him and say, listen, all the money is on the offensive side of the ball. You want us to get you help, right? So why don't you talk to the other two guys, take a little pay cut, transfer your money on the back end to a signing bonus, make it more lucrative, and give us more money to go out and get other players. And look, we all want the same thing, Joe. We want the same damn thing, Joe. but we're going to need your help. Give us some of your money so we can go get you some help.
I mean, it's all the flat, it's like the butterfly effect, right? If the Baltimore Ravens do accept the Max Crosby trade and Trey Hendrickson does not end up in Baltimore, maybe Cincinnati has a shot to re-sign him and we don't see this Dexter Lawrence trade. But because
True.
Max Crosby is back with the Raiders, who pick first overall, will be the first, I think the draft obviously starts with Fernando Mendoza. He was seeking property out in Henderson, Nevada weeks ago. Like, we could have been talking about something completely different, knowing that the way that the Baltimore Ravens conducted their business ultimately landed them Trey Hendrickson, and the Bengals were then able to pivot. And I mean, shout out, like, offensive linemen are certainly going to be flying off the board, especially for any teams in the AFC North, given the additions the Ravens, the Bengals made to their defensive lines, the Steelers and the Browns, always game wreckers with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, respectively. So I'm not going to belabor you with my Jackson Dart is not a franchise quarterback take, because Jackson Dart isn't a franchise quarterback. So the Giants getting as many draft picks as they can now is great. They're still going to be terrible next year, and who knows, they may even be able to take another quarterback in 2027. I'm just putting it out there. Just putting it out there.
Here's what happens in that situation. We already know who runs the room with the New York Giants.
It's John Harbaugh, who apparently didn't want to work out a deal with Dexter Lawrence. That's the other piece of it.
Right.
They were reportedly working on a contract extension, and John Harbaugh, who's supposed to be the adult in the room, ultimately, look, maybe they didn't know they were going to get the 10th overall pick for him, but they didn't want to do exactly what Lawrence and his agents asked them to do. Is that Harbaugh in the right? I guess if they get the 10th overall pick, the answer is yes.
Well, listen, we won't really know who won this whole battle. I guess for the Giants side, right away, 3 years from now, let's take a look at it. From a Cincinnati side, we're just kind of look at it and we get early indicators, based on maybe week 6 or week 7 in the season, how well the defense is doing, especially from a running standpoint. But here's the other thing that happened with this particular trade. And I always tell people, because every single year, everyone and their mama comes out with a damn mock draft. Even some basement scouts, right, have mock drafts.
Or garage scouts.
Yeah. and it gets to mock draft 6.0, and I'm like, well, why are you at a 6.0? That's because you change, you move the goalposts, right? And things in the draft don't always happen the way that we want them to happen. And I say a lot of those draft predictions are like filling out a March Madness bracket.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in the first round, your bracket is busted. And basically what the Dexter Lawrence trade did, it busted the bracket, because where every mock draft by the draft experts was saying this player is going to go here, here, and there, now that's been disrupted because Cincinnati's not on the board anymore. And you got what is the Giants with the 5th pick?
5 and 10.
5 and 10. So that changes the draft. So a lot of those elite players that were scheduled to go in the top 15, the top 20, now that has pushed everything down. So that's where the Denver Broncos are sitting at 62 saying, oh, yeah, we in the prime spot, because guess what? We don't have to give up draft capital to move into the first round. No, we don't have to do that, Alex. We can just stand pat. Or if there's a guy that's still on the board, right, still on the board, and we're talking about at spot 42 or spot 50, maybe the Broncos will say, you know what? Let's move up and get our guy and give up draft capital, like F them picks in 27 and give up some of those picks to move up.
Well, there's no telling, right? Like, there's just, you used your Miami Dolphins trade, for example. They obviously have the 30th pick, and they I believe they pick, their original pick was 11, right? So they have 11 and 30, and then at that point they have 4 picks in the 3rd round. So it's like, if teams covet somebody that can be a few spots ahead, they can just bundle those picks together. And, for a roster like Miami, I wouldn't necessarily advise that, because at this point they need quantity and quality, not one over the other. But the movement is always the fun part of it. And I think we're talking ourselves into this, Nick, because you're talking about players falling down the board. Maybe because we're talking about a top-heavy draft. We've got certainly a gifted quarterback, but one that isn't necessarily, giving us, the athletic traits off the chart like we had seen in previous number one picks. And beyond that, you're looking at some developmental players, defensive heavy, wide receivers with injury histories. So look, there's an argument to be made, and it's a lot of it to do with the quarterback class, Nick, that maybe Cincinnati wanted out of the first round because they couldn't get anybody they could pair on a roster ready to win with pick 10. Maybe this is a draft that's weaker than others. Why are the New York Jets focused in on acquiring 2027 draft capital when they made the move with Dallas to move on from Quinnen Williams, and ensuring that they get the best of a certain Packer or Cowboy pick when it came to the Sauce Gardner, no, not the Sauce Gardner trade. The Quinnen deal. They were hoping to get the best pick available or possible to them of those two teams in 2027. I'm rambling because at least one franchise that I know, your guy Aaron Glenn, they're angling themselves to be in as advantageous of a position for 2027. Now that must mean the 2026 draft class is weak. Cincinnati wanted out, and the Jets are maneuvering as best as they can for 2027.
No, that's not true. I don't see it that way. The Cincinnati Bengals saw an opportunity, and they were saying, okay, well, high risk, high reward, and they were evaluating experience versus inexperience and projections. But most important for them, they're in a different situation than the Jets find themselves. The Cincinnati Bengals, even as bad as their defense is, right? And I think you would agree with me on this one. They're closer to the Super Bowl than the Jets would be at this particular point.
There might be 31 teams closer to the Super Bowl than the New York Jets right now.
Exactly. So what the Brown family say, look, we know the division that we're in. We're playing against Lamar, right? And we don't know who's going to be the quarterback, Shador or Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, but we know we need to be prepared. So that's why they went out, and they got more value in their mind getting a veteran player opposed to a rookie player who may not even play 80% of the snaps all season long. But the Jets, what they're doing, they're trying to stack the deck. They know they're not going to be great in 2026. So they're saying, okay, well, we hope to win a certain amount of games in 2026 to make the fans at least happy where they're not calling for Aaron Glenn's job. And then that would get us to 2027 where we have more top picks. And when we look at the 2027 draft, it is said to be a better draft all because of damn quarterbacks. That's it. And it's like, it blows my mind how so many people grade and evaluate drafts based on the damn quarterbacks. The quarterback's not the end-all be-all because I've never seen a quarterback throw it and catch it. I've never seen, Marcus Mariota did throw it and got back down. And,
yes.
So that's the only quarterback I've ever seen that happen with. But they don't play defense. They don't get stops. So you have to build a team. And that's what the Jets are hoping. But the only problem with that philosophy is that the Jets fans are impatient. Aaron Glenn is not going to have that much time to turn this team around. He might be turning the team around to hand it off to another coach, right? And that would be sad and unfortunate as a former Jets player and a teammate of Aaron Glenn to watch him kind of go down because the fan base was impatient. But the idea is this is going to be extraordinary first round, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Jets do at 2. Do they stay at 2, or do they say, you know what? Let's collect some more picks for 2027.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay put. It just like they're going to get the best defensive player on the board. That's how I see it. And if Aaron Glenn says that he'd sign off, let's say, to go in another direction, rather than get, if you believe it's Arvell Reese, if you believe it's Reuben Bain, David Bailey, it just goes to show that this team.
Mentioned Sonny Styles.
Really? You think so? An off-ball linebacker at 2?
Well, I mean, you just said it yourself. Like, the Jets need defense. They need to turn the ball over. I mean, Aaron Glenn is a defensive coach. He said he's going to call the defense this year. And what better way to stick it to the Giants, right? What better way to stick it to the Giants than taking a guy that they wanted? They want.
So we know that the Giants want him. I understand that. You still have to make the best decision for the organization, independent of what another team wants. Sure, we can throw Sonny Styles in the conversation, but I just think the reality is that the guys that perform at the underwear Olympics don't necessarily always grade out to be a team's top prospect. We on the outside, me on the outside more so than you, Nick, may enjoy it as much as anybody, but I just yeah, Styles is an option to go anywhere in the top 10. I'd lean closer 5 to 10 rather than 1 through 5 or 2 through 5, but that's just my own, amateur opinion to it, just because of the effect that defensive player can have on the game. Just being able to line up and go attack ball. That's why the edge rushers are paid as much as they are. It's just that's the way the business of the NFL works, is to
Okay,
covet
so
that
so so
position.
let me toss out a name
Hmm.
that both Jets and Giants fans are well aware of, right? Lawrence Taylor, right? What if Lawrence Taylor was in a Jets uniform? I know that
Sure.
that
And
sounds
I know
very
he went
disgusting.
2 overall.
That,
Are we saying Sonny Styles coming out looking like Lawrence Taylor here? I didn't see
well,
that personally.
I'm not saying that I see that and I'm projecting that, but I know how this game works. You want impact players that impact the what is considered to be not my words, but the most important position, quarterback. You can only do that the closer you are to the ball. So you want guys who can actually do that. I mean, think about Brian Burns, right?
Sure. Am I not talking about edge rushers here? And that's why I'm against Sonny Styles? I'm talking edge rushers for the top 5, like other than Cleveland. I think edge rusher is in play for everybody outside of Vegas and Cleveland in the top 10.
See, once again, see, it all depends, Alex. It all depends because I know you mentioned, well, based on what's happening in the AFC, we could see teams have a run on offensive linemen. Some teams may do that, but I know the things that make those offensive linemen their jobs hell makes. I'm talking about we talking about lookout blocks, and what I mean by that, oh, guy just ran by you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Look
look
out.
out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So if you want to take an offensive lineman, go right ahead. I'm going to take an edge rusher because
So
you can't have enough of those guys.
I don't disagree with you, and that's the like for me. That's really where the draft starts. Is 3 for Arizona, who are doing the best that they can to try to. Well, we could take Jeremiah Love. We could. Please, somebody trade with us. Please, for the love of please let us move down. Let us get more picks. That's in it. Like you hit the nail on the head. I think for that team in particular, because philosophically they're not looking at Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett as their future long term. Do they install the left tackle for the QB of the future that is not on the roster currently, or do they get the edge rusher to help that defense and then get themselves prepared to find a quarterback in the future? Like that, for me, is really the starting point of the draft because we sort of believe the Jets are going to go defense, whether it's one of those edge rushers or you put Sonny Styles in there. I like the draft starting at 3. I think your guy Bob Sala at 4. Jeremiah Love is tantalizing, but I think they go defense as well. It's just there's a lot on the line here for so many of these teams that don't get to pick this high. I did mention the Jets. I did mention the Titans. The Giants, obviously, to pick. They pick high all the time. But there has to be some, like the rubber has to meet the road. They have to make these picks and get good players so they're not picking so early all the damn time. So there's just so much to be excited for. Like, that's sort of like the top end of the draft where I think we're going to see a lot more defensive players early with the offensive tackles mixed in. But is there anywhere else you're looking in the first round or, we may come back for this guy's following the first round, or we could do it Friday after day 2. But I'm sort of looking at a couple of spots, kind of inflection points in the draft. It's 3 at the Cardinals for me, and I think you have to get as far as, some of the playoff teams, like the Rams at 13 is a lot of fun. They pick again at, they pick again. No, why am I confused on the Rams all of a sudden? I
Well,
don't
the
know.
Rams pick again. They pick in the first round.
They picked
Uh,
13 with the Falcons pick
yeah,
for James
the
Pierce,
Falcons pick,
and
and they
then
come back
oh
and
no,
pick
they swapped it. They swapped it with Kansas City.
where
Yeah,
and
they swapped 29 for why is the corner's name
yeah,
escaping
yeah,
me?
yes, yes, yes. Right. So they don't pick again until
Yeah.
61. ahead of the Broncos in the second round.
Yeah. So I'm
They
staring at the
that's not
board.
a
I'm just
team
thinking,
that's desperate though, Alex.
how so?
Well, the Rams are not really desperate because they picked up two guys in the secondary,
Yes.
and to me, I think they were stacked already. Now, what they do need, they need to find another quarterback to back up Matthew Stafford.
Not at 13 though. I just like the
No,
idea
no, no,
that
no, not at
they
13.
can they can they can pick best available at 13. Baltimore at 14. That's how they operate as an organization. Best available. Great example. They picked up Kyle Hamilton at 14 a few years ago, and he's the best safety in the NFL since one Nick Ferguson. So I think it's interesting for Arizona at 3 and then the Rams at 13. My apologies for mixing up, forgetting the trade for the 29th pick, but there's just a couple of points where certain teams can go a certain way and it could kick off a run on a certain position. If the Rams, for instance, want to find a receiver to pair with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, that could start or end a run of receivers depending on if we see a receiver go in the top 10 or not.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the Rams and their receivers. I know you mentioned the wide receiver to pair with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, but Puka Nacua has his own off the field issues that he needs to
He's
work
at he's at minicamp. He checks in during the day, and then the rehab lets him leave to go to practice. So as far as the NFL is concerned, he's going to be on the field,
on.
right?
That's one hell of negotiating. You can go to practice, but you got to come back to the rehab facility, right? But I'll tell you this: the one that I'm really intrigued by is what Andrew Berry's going to do at 6 for the Cleveland Browns.
I
Right?
I
What is he going to do?
I think that's O line. I think I think they're going to take the top tackle, or they're going to take the second tackle if Arizona goes tackle at 3, because they they they're completely rebooting their offensive line. They had 5 starters walk, and
Dudes were terrible,
yeah,
especially their left tackle. Oh my God,
yeah. So
turnstile.
yeah, so they got Dewan, the Ohio State kid, Dewan. God, he's like 6'8", and he shed some weight, but I don't know if he's a left tackle. They may move him to right tackle depending if they can get um, Maui Noga or Freeling of those two. Those have been regarded as the top 2 tackles that could go in the first 6 picks. But Cleveland's strategy is they're a year away from getting off the Deshaun Watson money. So the way that they operate is to fully reset the books a year from now. So tackle kind of makes sense to me to not necessarily commit themselves to, to a specialty position, or certainly, an edge rusher or receiver that come 3 years from now, they have to hand out massive extensions to.
So you were talking about Dewan Jones?
Dewan Jones, that's correct.
Okay.
So he's still there coming off his rookie year. I know he had weight concerns, but he's since shed some weight, and he's in line to be the left tackle unless they take somebody at 6. So
Well,
I like Cleveland.
he's gonna have
Is there
four.
another spot that you like in the first round?
Let's see. I mean,
Chicago, Buffalo,
Chicago
back to
wins.
back to me. Cleveland picks again at 24. 24, 25, 26 is really fun because I think you go like the edge rusher class really thins out after the first 4 or 5 guys. And, for these teams that made the playoffs, like a Buffalo, like a San Francisco, like Houston, you know,
Yeah.
adding more pass rush would be a great move, but they all can't do it.
Well, I mean, I think at 12, um, Dallas
Dallas,
Cowboys.
talk to me, Jerry
That's
Jones.
interesting because I'm thinking, see, Jerry knows that his offense is pretty good with Dak. And just like the Miami Dolphins who picked before the Cowboys, their defense has struggled mightily, especially in the secondary. And you have a new defensive coordinator in Christian Parker who comes from the school of Vic Fangio. And once again, even though the league loves to uplift quarterbacks, the old adage is true. Defense wins championships. So Jerry is thinking the thing that has been holding him back from getting back to the big game for 30 plus years has been the fact that their defense has been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably going to take a defensive player. I would be shocked if they didn't take somewhat of a pass rusher at that pick.
Somebody, one of the elite guys that we sort of mentioned, I could see fall to 12. It had
Who?
happened with Micah Parsons a few years ago. Just pick one. I mean, one of Reuben Bain or Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese or David Bailey. One of those four, I bet, would fall out of the top 10.
But you know what, Alex? See, that's the thing
Like,
that
would they
gets
move? Would they move from 12 to 9 or 10 if Kansas City or even the Giants, want to accumulate more draft capital?
that would be risky, but I wouldn't put it past the gambler himself and Jerry Jones because Jerry knows he's getting older, and his time to kind of live in the sun in the Super Bowl and hoist up that Lombardi Trophy. Time is ticking, man. Time is a ticking. And if he can find a player that can actually offset things for him, he's definitely going to do it. But this whole narrative about guys sliding, I never liked that type of language and narrative because,
Except if it goes to the Broncos at 62, because you did mention
well, listen, slide and fall, those are two different words.
that.
They mean something entirely different, right? Because slide seemed as though, okay, well, something happened with the player. He did something wrong. There was some of a red flag. So he slid so far because other teams didn't want to have anything to do with him. Now, see, that is more of an ideal term. Why we talked about Dexter Lawrence. Based on what the Bengals had done with him, we're going to see guys start to fall down, right? They're going to fall. A guy who may have been said to be in the top 10, guess what? Now he's in the top 20. Is it his fault? Hell no, right? It's not his fault that there were 5 other teams who decided, you know what? We want offensive tackles instead of receivers and running backs. It's not his fault, but he falls at the right place at the right time.
And that's my thought. Somebody could fall to 12. That's all I meant by that, Nick.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm glad we got the terminology down just in time
Yes.
for the NFL draft. I think the one hanging piece for it as well. Reports that a post June 1 trade for the New England Patriots and A.J. Brown are already done. I
You
don't.
couldn't wait, could you? You couldn't wait, could you?
Well, listen, if we're talking about a team that is receiver needy and could take one at 31, all of a sudden won't need to because they're expecting A.J. Brown, I think that makes a difference. It could cause receivers to fall. I add that this is sort of wrapped up in the 2027 draft conversation because any trade completed post June 1 is going to involve 2027 capital. I'd be, what's the word? Blown away if the Patriots don't have the kind of leverage to get a day 2 pick in exchange for A.J. Brown, given he doesn't want to be in Philly. They don't want him there in Philly, and the money that's owed to him in a contract extension. I just, it would make me pretty upset, and I feel like the trade is not worth it if they gave up the 2027 first-round pick for A.J. Brown. But that's just me, because, as we all know, it is a loaded 2027 draft class with quarterbacks and Jeremiah Smith.
That 2027. But here's what
As long as the head coach is still there, right? Given Mike Vrabel addressing the allegations, well, he said a whole lot without saying anything.
Are they allegations?
Yeah.
Let's be totally honest.
Yeah. Okay, the photos. He addressed the photos.
Yes. Okay. The photo says that it's more than allegations.
A picture
Allegation
is worth
that.
more than 1,000 words.
Yes, an allegation is. I think I heard someone say that they saw this take place, him holding hands with someone else. But when you have a photograph and you have evidence, Exhibit A, or as they would say, receipts, right? That's not an allegation. No. See, people don't, resign from their job based on allegations. People don't do that. Not that I
The
know.
the resignation, the Diana versus Mike Vrabel portion of it are two completely different conversations, which we can hash out. I mean, I'm looking at the time, but I also understand that what the responsibility is of a journalist covering the National Football League that votes for postseason awards is different than that of a head coach. I mean, let's take the sports out of it. Like 2 families potentially being broken up over this is a big deal, and it's serious. and it happens in more places than just Coldplay concerts, Nick Ferguson. But I will say that, like, all of this in light and all of this in jest, it's like this is a team that was rallied behind a head coach that they took seriously, and they got out from Bill Belichick, whose whose age inappropriate girlfriend was getting more and more access to the team. Like, we thought we had kind of escaped from this in New England, just for it to never just be a part of the program. So I just don't want to
Wait,
invalidate.
wait, wait. First of all, you should know this.
Okay,
It's the Patriots
the
way.
Patriot way. It is, the fact that this happened to Vrabel and Ime Udoka with an inappropriate relationship with somebody
Both in Boston.
regarding his what it is. There's something in that dirty water of the Charles River there, Nick Ferguson.
Beantown.
I so I it's always the cover up and not the crime, right? They're talking about being there for separate trips and then not being able to provide any receipts to text messages or photos with other people in them. Like, the first girls' trip that doesn't have 50 million photos on it will be the first. So there's some culpability there. The cover up always being worse than the lie itself. But if they're trying to save their marriages and have their extracurricular activities, like, that's on them. You take the football out of it, that's more on the reporter than the head coach. But at the same time, we're 2 weeks removed from Vrabel in a statement saying this is laughable. An apology in front of the media today says that the statement saying it was laughable is laughable. Clearly, he did something wrong. Otherwise, he would just go with the statement he said 2 weeks ago.
Well, you know what? I'll say this about that situation. To each his own. They are both consenting adults. They would now have to handle it with their spouses. The only thing I would say, if there was information that was passed along from Bravo to Rossini or vice versa that impacted games in any way, that would prove to be problematic, and the league would need to handle it. Now, on the other part, as that you open up with, talking about AJ Brown.
Sure.
Now, earlier in, I think about a month ago, you might remember this podcast or this appearance. AJ Brown was on the podcast with Julian Edelman and Gronk on the Dudes on Dudes podcast,
Sure.
and they were kind of pushing this out, trying to put this in the ether, if you will,
Just
and proclaiming it and place the flag and say, well, you know what? You have a relationship with Vrabel. He was there in Tennessee, when you were an early rookie. Well, wouldn't it be great if you kind of join or rejoin Mike Vrabel with the Patriots?
Well,
And it looks like it could happen.
this is like Jules and Gronk talking to me. They're talking to a Patriot fan and AJ Brown. I was convinced the team would take him draft night, only to then select N'Keal Harry out of Arizona State, which don't remind me. But they were just trying to get the Patriots fan to pledge to the team, given the issues that the Philadelphia Eagles have, which was all laid out, for an ESPN deep dive. So my point is, I don't necessarily see the leverage that Philly may have in a trade, given how much of their dirty laundry is out there. But pot, meet kettle, Patriots have plenty of dirty laundry now as well.
Yes, and I'm surprised that as a Patriots fan wearing that Boston hat, that you were willing to openly admit that.
I am so sorry that you had to see this. We are recording on the night where the Yankees just beat the Red Sox 4-0. And the Red Sox season has been a disaster. But at least the Patriots are picking 31st overall because they went to the Super Bowl. I think the kicker here, Nick, and I hate to do this and to end the pod like this, if Mike Vrabel just stuck to his plan, this would have never happened. This plan being he would have cut off his family jewels, if he could win a Super Bowl as a head coach. Had he won the Super Bowl, he would have lopped it all off, and then there's no extramarital relationship, right? What's the incentive if he's got, a Ken doll body?
Right. I don't know about you, but I don't know what universe of the millions of universes that are out there where I would, as a man, ever make that statement. I am not doing anything with my member, and nothing in life is worth that.
There is Nick Ferguson, who you would argue less competitive than one Mike Vrabel. I'm Alex Hardy. I also confirmed less. Uh, also confirmed, less of a risk taker than Mike Vrabel. We are those guys.
Yes.
You see these guys over there? Don't check them out. I swear, if you hang with those guys, you do get some draft coverage throughout this week. Again, this is Tuesday evening. We're recording, so we're excited. We'll hit you following round one Thursday. You'll get that Friday morning. And look, we got to cover pick 62 as well, Nick Ferguson. So until then, what do you have to say to the people?
Make sure you always think twice before you do anything. And make sure, of course, if you're going to hold hands, don't do it in public.
I mean, who's the last platonic friend where you've interlocked fingers with, Nick?
I don't do that. Right? I don't do that. Platonic friends are not. No interlocking the fingers.
See,
No.
that's why we're talking, both of us, less competitive than one
Yes.
Mike Vrabel.
Absolutely.